Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the problems being created out of our income tax system being based on a graduated tax system rather than a uniform tax system. Because I argue that all the problems that we have today in our society stem from the income tax and the maladministration of it. First of all, the second plank of the Communist Manifesto reads a heavy, progressive, or graduated income tax. Now, that's where you find graduated taxation of income. The Constitution requires uniformity of taxation of the American people. The uniformity required is effected by the uniformity requirement imposed on all indirect taxes of the type impost, duty, or excise. And there's a uniformity requirement that is created through the apportionment clause to the state that's controlled by the proportionate imposition of the tax under the census, which will ultimately end up being the same amount per person billed to each state. So this system of graduated taxation that we enforce through the system of different tax brackets that have different rates of tax imposed on the different groups of people created is completely unconstitutional when enforced against the citizens rather than the inanimate corporations or the inanimate commodities and articles of commerce subject to tax, or against the controlled foreign persons and foreign corporations that are actually taxed. But when you impose a graduated system of tax brackets on the American people, what essentially happens is you start the class warfare. The classes in today's society are literally defined by the brackets of the income tax system. And because those classes of persons are then treated differently under the law, you create the false and erroneous belief throughout society that it's okay to create separate groups and treat them differently under the law. It's one law for everyone. And because society is broken into the different classes, we then spend all of our time waging war on the other class amongst ourselves. And this system of class warfare compels each and every politician to pick one class or the other to represent. No politician is ever able to represent the whole of America anymore. It's either this class or that class. So we've lost our system of representative government. We've lost our system of representation because it's been replaced with a communistic system of class warfare. The Communist Manifesto calls for an income tax in the second plank in order to control the labors of the people, in order to be able to use them as instruments of the state, to put them to work at whatever projects or non-projects the government wants to do or not do. And it calls for a graduated tax in that same second plank because communism is based on class warfare, the proletariat class taking over and throwing out the royal, the aristocratic class, ultimately the wealthy. And that class warfare is created within the graduated tax system. Each class treated differently until all the classes except one are destroyed and removed from society. And then, of course, you only have one class, the people who are ruled by the Politburo, who become a class to themselves all over again, just exempted from the law this time. So the system of graduated tax brackets, if you research it, it goes back to the series of Supreme Court decisions in the 1860s through the 1880s, where the court ruled that graduated taxes were okay because they were based on the power of Congress to discriminate against the inanimate commodities and articles of commerce subject to tax, and that they could discriminate against the corporate person because they exist by privilege. And therefore, it's okay for a corporation that only earns $10,000 in the business of selling alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, or whatever business they're in, to be taxed at a lower rate than a business or corporation that makes $10 million in that same industry. So you can have graduated tax brackets with respect to the commodities, articles of commerce, and the corporations because it's based on the power of Congress to discriminate against those things. But what power does Congress have to discriminate against the American people? On any basis, including wealth or earnings or income. Where is that? How is that different than having different laws for the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims, or the blacks and the whites, and the reds and the yellows and the browns? How is it different having laws for the men and the women, the old and the young, the gay and the straight? Really? You really want to break the population into classes and have different laws for everyone? Are you sure we shouldn't go back to uniform taxation, where the labors of the American people aren't within the powers granted to tax by impost, duty, or excise? The graduated tax system is what's caused and resulted in the warfare you see in our city streets all over America. Riots, looting, smash and grab, assault. It's a class warfare system. Different laws for different groups that keeps the classes at war with one another until they're all destroyed. And the elitists, the politburos, at this point, obviously the communists, don't believe me? Go read the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. Go read them. And after you read them, come back and tell me we're not already practicing 70% of that. That's what the movement is all about right now, to world socialism. And you do it by dividing the populations into warring factions, keep them fighting within a class warfare system against each other so they never notice that it's the Politburo that's looting the treasury to enrich themselves, their cronies, and their families, Joe. And instead, burn down society. And the Democrats know that without the violence of a class warfare system, they'll never be able to bring down enough of the operating social safety net systems to motivate anyone to have a discussion or talk about a new form of government. The only way to get there is by doing what they're doing, running Saul Alinsky's playbook, Rules for Radicals, which describes how it will be necessary to destroy, bring down, bring into chaos, anarchy, and complete inoperation all of the existing system structures and support systems, security, border, food, healthcare, housing, shelter, education. Be necessary to destroy all of those things and make them completely dysfunctional before the population will entertain any discussion or conversation about a new form of government, which the governments want to be changed from a constitutional republic to a social democracy like they have in Europe. Remember, democracy, democracy, democracy? These idiots don't even know what form of government we have in this country. It's not a democracy. It's a constitutional republic. The difference is, in a democracy, the majority rules. And they know that with the mainstream media in their pocket, they can create the appearance of a majority on any issue they decide to focus on. And then you, living in a democracy, have to accept the majority's rule and shut up and sit down and do what you're told and take it and pay for it. But in a republic, the majority doesn't rule. The law controls the majority so that 51% can't vote the other 49% back into slavery or peonage debt service or a welfare funding system that funds welfare for the 51% to live off of for free. So it all starts with the tax brackets of the income tax system and the results of that system and 75 years of maladministration and extortion in place of legitimate enforcement of constitutional taxation has given us the chaotic and violent system results in the cities all over America. It's given us one political party, the Democrats, who are actually waging war on America, orchestrating an invasion on the border, destroying energy independence, letting crime run rampant in the cities where the criminals are released to do it again the same day. No bail, out. The aliens are already forming into gangs, preying on the American people, bringing down the systems of order that exist in order to encourage the people to move to a discussion about a new form of government, the social democracy, where the law won't control the majority. And under a socialist system, nothing gets produced because the government is in control of everything, and it only rations energy sufficient to produce to its supporters. And people that support a social government aren't smart enough to run a business. So ultimately, you eventually run out of other people's money. When all the wealth is gone, it becomes necessary to clamp down on the people at every aspect of their lives, as in North Korea, or to go to war to seize the resources of a neighboring nation, like Russia in the Ukraine and China and Taiwan. And it all starts with class warfare created by the belief that you can have different laws to treat the different groups of people in the population differently based on some distinction, like how much money they earn. The whole tax is a constitutional fraud. And all of this information is exposed over at www.tax-freedom.com. And I'm doing it now, exposing it all in videos on this channel, which is at Tax Freedom. And again, that's with a hyphen. Tax-Freedom. The YouTube channel is at Tax Freedom. I'm Thomas Freed. You can read about it at taxfreedom.com. You can get help answering IRS letters that you may have received or know someone who is having trouble with the IRS. We help you answer their letters for $50 or less per letter. Okay, so if you enjoy the information, watch the rest of the videos and subscribe. Later.